Oh.
All right, welcome to episode 3 of Teriyaki Tuesday. We just finished teriyaki this Tuesday, and it was delicious.
Yes, I
And
remember.
if you guys haven't checked out Michinoku and Niagara Falls, if you're in the area, we highly recommend it. Teriyaki is spot on. And if you're watching us, let us know if we're choppy or not.
And if you can hear me.
And if you can hear Gibbons, give us a thumbs up.
I'm gonna speak loud today.
And yeah, let us know if you give us a thumbs up, like a comment in the comment section of here. But so what do we want to talk about today? We're recording over here. So if the live botches, at least we'll still get what we're talking about. We just won't be able to get it live. But
yeah, you wanted to talk about the spiritual recession.
yeah, so this is kind
I still don't understand,
okay. So
even though you explained it 3 times. I'm hoping the pressure of being live will.
okay, so we got to go back a little bit, and we got to start this off with the story of the Zen master that says we'll see, right? So I made a video about this early on, way back in, I think, in the spring in the pandemic, and it was a brief one, but it tells a story about the sage or the Zen master that says we'll see, right? And the way the story goes is that there's a farmer and for his son and they're kind of poor farmers, and his son always wants a horse, and by the time he was a teenager, the father was finally able to afford to buy his son a horse that he always wanted. Now, where the village is, there's a mountain nearby, and up on top of the mountain there's a sage or a Zen master up there that sits up there, and every month or so he comes down to get supplies and talk to the village people and see what the haps is. So the one time he comes down, he says, Chris is a little choppy. All right.
How's the audio?
Yeah, can you hear? Talk, Miss Gibbons.
Is the audio choppy or is it loud enough?
He's going to delay a little bit. It's usually a little bit of delay on when he hears it when he stops. So we'll keep an eye out. So the Zen master comes down for that month to pick up his supplies and see what the haps are. And they say, hey, did you hear the great news, Zen master, that, the farmer got his boy a horse? It's awesome. He always wanted a horse, and he finally bought it. Isn't that awesome news? And the Zen master says, yeah, we'll see. And they're like, what? What do you mean we'll see? That's awesome news. Why can't you just be happy? And he's like, we'll see. So then Zen master goes up the mountain, right? A month goes by, and the Zen master comes back down and to see what's up, and the villagers say, oh, it's been a terrible month. Remember that horse that the boy got? He finally got his horse that he wanted. The horse ran away. Isn't that terrible? And the Zen master goes, we'll see. And the villager's like, why are you being such a jerk? That's horrible news. How can you say we'll see? They had a horse, now they have no horse, he ran away. Horrible news. So he goes, okay, we'll see, and he goes back up the mountain. Month goes by again, Zen master comes back down, says, what's going on? And they say, it's fantastic news. The horse came back, and not only did it come back, it brought 3 wild horses with it. So now instead of having the 1 horse, the farmer had 4 horses altogether. Can you beat that? Is that not awesome news? And of course the Zen master said, we'll see, right? How can you be such a jerk? They got 4 horses. Zen master goes up, comes back down a month later, says, what's going on? And they say, well, horrible news. The boy tried to ride one of the wild horses and fell off and broke his leg, and now he cannot walk properly with the injury. Isn't that horrible? Zen master, of course, says, we'll see. Goes back up the mountain. Final time they come back down, well, not the final time, but a month later, Zen master comes back down and says, what's going on now? And they say, it's great news. A war broke out, and all the young people in the village have to go to war. But this boy, because of his injury, he wasn't conscripted to go to war, so he gets to stay home. He doesn't have to go march off to his death. Isn't that fantastic? And the Zen master says, we'll see.
We'll see.
Right? Okay. So the point is that we go through adversities, and we've got successes, and we've got failures, and we go up and down and up and down, up and down, and you never really know how things are going to end, right? And whenever there's a low point, there's also a high point coming in after it. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So now getting into the spiritual recession. So the background on this story is, so I had kind of a little bit of a unique childhood, maybe, because I was raised in in a real estate family. Real estate, we're all real estate agents. That was the thing that everyone did. My grandmother and grandfather invested in real estate with the little tiny money they had. They bought an apartment or a duplex when they can afford it. This is going back probably 70 years ago. So I was always kind of put to bed with stories about, real estate and what happens when the market's good and what happens when the market's bad and when you're in a recession. And the one thing that I learned early growing up is that the market's going to go up and it's going to go down and it's going to go up and it's going to go down, right? And if you recognize those waves and you learn it, well then you do the sensible thing and you buy when the market's low and then you sell when the market's high, right? So you learn to ride those waves. Well, so when you look at that as an investor, when you look at things long term, like we encourage our black belts to do in black sashes, right? Not to look at just the individual highs and lows, especially when you're training in martial arts, is you got to look at the long term picture, because some days you're going to be really excited to come to Kung Fu, and other days you're not going to be, and then you're going to be excited and you're not going to be. But if you make a long term decision like I don't feel good right now, so I'm not going to train anymore. Well, if you make that decision, which is during the low, but not only that, you're making an emotional decision that will affect a long-term process. If you're making it based off a temporary emotion, in the long term, you're not really going to win, right? If you make those emotional decisions, which will affect a long-term outcome, okay? So when you set a goal of becoming a black belt or a black sash, that's important. You set this long-term goal. You don't let individual highs or lows, which come and go, change that long-term decision. And the people that do that, they keep committed to that goal long-term, because they have a longer time perspective. They're thinking now 3 to 5 years in the future, they're going to accomplish a lot more, instead of someone who just goes with the whim of being at a high point or a low point, right? So that Zen master will see story tells you kind of like you look at the highs and lows, but you have a longer time frame. You don't panic when things are bad, and you don't get overly crazy and excited and throw caution to the wind when times are really good. Okay. Now, when you see that and you recognize, again, from looking at a financial point of view, right, you recognize when a recession comes and what you have to do, which, right now we're in that kind of low point, but a different type, not a financial low point. We're in what I call a spiritual low point, or a spiritual recession, okay? Now, when you're in a financial recession, if you've done properly and you've saved up cash, right? Because you've been frugal throughout those high times. You didn't get super excited and throw out money all over the place when it was good, but you held some off and you held some back, and you have a little bit of cash. Well, then in a recession, that cash means twice as much, right? So that's what I mean when you're in a recession. Whatever the things that you valued before that recession, they're worth twice as much now. Okay. This isn't not meant to be a financial lesson, so okay. Just bear with me. It's meant to be a spiritual lesson, all right? But the things that we value that were kind of more abundant when things were easier, they're worth twice as much now. But from a spiritual standpoint. So
what exactly is valuable, okay, spiritually?
Discipline.
Okay.
Self-discipline, compassion, perseverance, goal setting, kindness, which is kind of included in compassion, connection with whoever your creator or the universe, that divine connection, plus connection with other people. That's for me. That's what spirituality is connection, right? Connection either up or over, up to to divine, or over to other people. But we're spiritual beings, right? We're not, like Yoda said, we're not just this crude matter. We're spiritual beings, which means we have connection with other people, right? And a lot of people are at a spiritual low point right now because a lot of those connections are much harder to hang on to, right? Mm-hmm. So that's what I mean by spiritual recession. Okay, now, is that a bad thing? Is it a good thing? We'll see. Okay, so now you're getting it. But the point is that those things that we valued before this spiritual recession that we're in this year, because of all the stuff that's going on, right? Which is multifaceted. You can't just say it's the COVID. There's a lot of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. A lot of stuff for people to get polarized over. A lot of stuff for people to fight over. But the things that we valued before that we talked about, you value compassion, discipline, confidence, focus, perseverance. If you had those before, they're worth twice as much now. And if you hold on to those values, they're worth twice as much more. Okay? And if you don't hold on to them, they probably weren't as valuable to you as you thought they were. Right? Like we talk about values. A lot of people think they have values, and they have them until it gets stressed, until it's hard to hang on to those values, and they let them off to the, you know, they leave them aside, they abandon them. Well, that shows that those values weren't really valued. They were more like hobbies. They were ideas that they liked, right? Like someone could say, well, I'm a compassionate person, right? I value compassion. And then like they're walking in the parking lot with the shopping cart, and someone doesn't see him and drives by a little bit quick, and they're like yelling at the person, stuff like that. Like, well, you know, maybe that person didn't see them or whatever, that people make mistakes, people have, you know, but, and then you're unforgiving for that, to that person. So then you weren't really that compassionate. You just like the idea of compassion, right? But you don't like compassion when it's really, really difficult to be compassionate. Then that's not a value, it's a hobby, if that makes sense, okay? I'm not trying to be, you know, I'm not trying to be judgmental or critical of anyone. I'm just saying, this is the good part about this, is that those values are worth twice as much now than they were before. And we could talk more about every aspect of our program that we talk about in leadership development and black belt development. We can cover in the next, how much time we got? 50 minutes. So have at it.
Okay. So what's valuable about having spirituality right now? Like, why is it more valuable? How is it going to serve someone in the long run to hold on to?
Everything is and at the risk of sounding, I don't want to sound cold here or bitter, but everything is relative, right? So when everyone has less compassion, right? The compassion that you had is just worth so much more, right? And unfortunately, we live in on a plane, an existence of duality, right? Where everything is relative. So you can't have something that's good without something that is bad, that this is relative to, if that makes sense. I don't know if that answered your question. So maybe rephrase it if you didn't get enough answer from that. This computer's still updating. Sorry.
Is it still at 9? No, it's undoing it now because an error occurred.
Oh, how long did that? 1 second. I guess that didn't work.
So I don't know. I think that makes sense. This is what I'm getting. I'll just tell you what I'm getting out of it, and then you can tell me if I'm wrong. Okay, so like having compassion and all these spiritual values is worth more right now. I would also say it feels like it costs more. Like it's a more personal, it's harder to make those decisions right now, for sure. Like it's definitely harder to have more discipline. It's definitely harder to show more compassion right now. And it's definitely harder to have more perseverance right now.
Yep. It is. It definitely is harder.
But I also feel like I'm at an advantage because of better choices I made before this happened.
So that's the same thing as what makes it like a financial recession, and that the choices you made during that time, right?
During the high,
yeah, are giving you quite the advantage of what you're doing right now. So because you solidified those values when it was easier for you, right? You basically, you know, you put away for a rainy day, from a value and spiritual standpoint to weather this storm now.
So like, what does somebody do now in a recession? What would you do financially in a recession?
If you weren't prepared for it?
What if you were? If you
were prepared for it, well then you increase your influence, and you increase the positive effect you have on your community. So this goes into now when we talk about leadership. So when we talk about leadership, we reflect on, we kind of model West Point's leadership, right? Kind of. Yeah. In that the first phase of leadership, if we want to be a leader in our community, the first thing we have to develop is good followership, meaning good discipline. Yeah. Right? We have to learn to follow a system. Right? Yeah. And if we can't follow a system or follow someone else, then we're definitely not going to be able to follow ourselves, right, and our own greater purpose. So the first step is to follow. So having good discipline. And in Kung Fu in our class, that's very simple. So showing your respect. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Right? That's all good discipline. Once you understand that, then you can move on to the second phase of leadership development, which is self-discipline. So you know what has to be done now, you don't have to be told. So with kids, we say, you know, if your discipline is good and mom tells you to go make the bed, your discipline is good. If you want to be a black belt, when do you do it? Do it right away after only being asked one time. That's good discipline. If your self-discipline is good, when do you do it? Before they even ask. That's good self-discipline. The third phase of that is team leadership, right? Where you're setting an example for your other team members. So we tell kids that, look, if you're making the bed all the time without being asked, what do you think your younger sister's going to do? And the kids just say, well, she's going to do the same thing. Exactly, because you're a leader in your team, in your family, and she's going to want to follow you. So, and then, you know, and then eventually the fourth phase is executive leadership or leadership, where we're actually coaching and teaching other people, right? And inspiring other people. But now, if you've done a good job of having good discipline and self-discipline, you're a much more effective team leader now. You're going to be relatively, you're providing a much better example now through your actions, through your discipline, your focus, your confidence, and your self-discipline, right? That example that you guys are pushing forward as black belts is worth even more than it was before, when it's very hard for people to stay positive, and it's very hard for them to keep motivated and keep disciplined and you know, keep their eye on their goals. It's more difficult now. You guys, the black belts and black sashes especially, are providing a way better example relatively, right? So that, again, those values and that example that you guys are leading is worth way more. So now your influence on other people is far stronger than it was before, your positive influence, right? But likewise, if you were a negative influencer, which I don't think anyone that trains here is, you would also be using that, you know, for evil.
Evil.
Yeah.
So sometimes when we talk about when things go back to a relative normal, we talk about like a weighted vest.
Yeah, and that's the same.
Is that in the realm of what we're talking about?
Yeah, no, it absolutely is, because if and when, and I mean, I shouldn't say if, because like we talked about, we'll see. Things go up, they go down. They go up, they go down.
Before.
So exactly. So if we're at a point now where it's very difficult for people to keep motivated at their goals, and they're you know, watching the news and they're seeing everything about the Rona and this is shut down and you can't do this and you can't do that, you know, people are getting down about that. It's a lot like a weighted vest, right? Well, if you put a weighted vest on and then sit on your couch and do nothing, when it's time to take the vest off, are you going to be any stronger for it?
Not really.
No, not really at all. All right? But if you put this vest on and you try to do all the things that you were doing before, all the regular errands you're doing before, all the activity you're doing before, and then you take the vest off, then what's going to happen?
You're going to be like Piccolo.
You're going to be like Piccolo.
And then you're just going to...
Do people know who Piccolo is anymore?
I don't know. From Dragon Ball Z. That's the only episode of Dragon Ball Z I remember, except
when they took off all the weighted stuff they had.
Yeah. And then,
yeah, I remember that episode too.
Go really fast.
That's right. Yeah, because they had all the weighted stuff. This Norton tool is driving me nuts. Close that down. Well, the computer finally got back on.
So would you say like every effort that we put forth now
is going to mean twice as much when the weighted vest comes off?
I think it's more than twice.
Well, so conservatively twice.
It feels like 10 times harder, so I feel Yeah. So if it's harder now to keep focused on your goals, on what you want to accomplish, whether it's, you know, losing weight or you know, organizing yourself, organizing your day, building up your confidence, being able to talk to more people, starting up your, you know, a business if that's what you want to do. All those steps you're doing now is going to make it much easier when the weighted vest comes off. So now is not the time to be like, I'll just wait for the new normal to come. Like, no, you can't be waiting. You've got to be doing what you can while you can when you can. And well, yeah, but it's hard. Well, I know it's hard, you know, but do you want to sit on the couch with the vest on, or do you want to do what you can, right? And build up more competence and more ability. And I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do. It's easy to say, a whole other thing to do. Like what helps me is like really like it's not gonna feel good right now, at all. But like, it won't feel good later. It's not gonna feel good to sit on the couch either.
Yeah, your day's gonna
might be easier.
Your day's gonna pass either way.
Yeah.
The 24 hours for today is gonna pass, no matter what.
Yeah.
Right. And if you Yeah, and if you kind of just do nothing, and sometimes you have to. There's days when
you have to rest.
You got to rest and be like, nope, not getting everything done today. You can't do that every day, but once in a while, if that happens, you got to forgive yourself.
Yeah. Every effort to move forward right now is gonna. It won't feel maybe like forward movement right now, but then at least you're not sliding down the hill.
Do you guys, if you guys are watching, how did you get the who was on last time? Remember how you did that? You need to click a button there or something and it showed us.
I don't know. You can see we have...
If you guys do, we're looking at the comment section here, so if you guys do have any questions or anything or any feedback or anything, please put it in. Yeah, don't just like it, but mention that you're here. Hi Lacey, hi Chris. I see you guys are, I don't know if you guys are still watching. So, so what else? Compassion. I keep talking about compassion because that's a big one right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, well, when you go to the store and everything, there's like signs to be nice and everything. It's kind of funny.
Signs to be nice?
Yeah, it's like be kind. How about trying some kindness?
It's good that we need signs. You need signs for that. Signs are good. That's good. I'm glad they have some positive signs out there, not just like, walk this way, don't walk that way. But yeah, be nice and smile. Those are good signs too. What else?
Because I don't know, it's easy to be short right now. And
short people, yeah. So we talked about discipline. We talked about self-discipline. We talked about compassion, teamwork, and influence. Talked about that. Health is another one too. Right?
Yeah.
Because we're worried about, obviously, so there's the Rona going on, so that's like a concern. That's a health concern, and you can just kind of sit on the couch and kind of be scared to do nothing, or you can focus on what is in your control, right? So obviously, you take your standard precautions. You don't go outside if you're sick, and you wash your hands, put your mask on, all that stuff. But other than that, you can't just sit there and hope. Like, you got to take other actions that are within your control, right? Like we talked about last week, you've got to have that internal locus of control. So there's certain, understand the difference between what you can control and what you can't control, right? Keeping healthy, eating well, getting enough sleep, getting enough exercise are all things that are within your control to maintain your health, right? That's stuff that you can do that can't be done for you, right?
I like how you describe it. Like you don't just
Lacey asked a question. I'll answer in a sec. Finish your thought.
Okay.
1 sec, Lace.
Mandatory masks and mandatory kindness. Not really kindness if it's mandatory.
It's okay. Okay, we'll get to it in a sec. 1 second. Okay, go.
What was I asking? Oh, I like how you describe health as like it's not just avoiding sickness. You also have to create health.
Yes. Yeah. That's. Health is something that's something that's cultivated. It's not. Health is not
just the
lack of sickness. You don't get it from being neutral. Health is cultivated, right?
Yeah, like if you just stay in a bubble.
Yeah, like you can't live healthy by just avoiding illness. It doesn't work that way. It's something that's cultivated. It's something that's cultivated through life, through exercise, through positivity, through social exchange, right? Through conversation, through optimism, all that woo-woo stuff. It's all important, and just if you don't believe it, just try the opposite. Bury yourself in a cave somewhere with no contact of any kind, right? And
yeah, you actively have to make yourself healthy. You can't just avoid germs.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and I think there's like
I think that's science. I read on Harvard website that fruit actually does improve your immune system.
Oh, I know. I know some people that would disagree. With you.
So
I'm not going to argue with that, but yeah.
It also said get enough sleep, exercise, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's a message that's not being kind of pushed out enough, is that you have to take your health into your own hands, and you can't. You can't just write it off. It has to be cultivated. It has to be cultivated through exercise, through diet, through sleep, through proper breathing, everything. But if you do that now, it's going to mean twice as much now than it regularly would. Okay, so what is she saying?
Standing still technically better than sliding down the hill. Well, yeah. So you're not moving backwards.
Technically, yeah. Now, Lacey, you remember that book, Psycho-Cybernetics? I think you read that at some point. You didn't have to read it yet, but...
I don't think she would have, unless
she read it. I mentioned it to her in a class once, and she went out and she got it right away and she read it. But there's a point in there, a really good point that Maxwell Maltz makes, and if you guys haven't read this book, Psycho-Cybernetics is an awesome book, life-changing from my perspective, but he writes that the only way you can maintain balance, it's like riding a bike, right? It's like riding a bike. And a person can only maintain balance when they're on the bike in motion. Mm-hmm. And if they're stagnant, they can't maintain balance, right? So if you're going to maintain balance, you have to be moving forward, okay? So if that makes sense, that's kind of the best answer I can give you there. So I mean, yeah, standing still is technically better than sliding downhill.
So if you're climbing a mountain, though, depends on the metaphor. If you're climbing a mountain, clinging to the side of the mountain, if you're not moving forward,
better than falling,
is exerting a tremendous amount of energy.
Yeah.
And so if you were to do nothing while you were climbing a mountain, you would roll down the hill like Princess Bride.
As you wish. Yeah.
I don't know. So I think if right now is hard, it's more like climbing a mountain.
Are we frozen? Is telling us I'm not doing anything.
Sorry?
Oh no, there it goes. Okay,
yeah.
Yeah.
But if it's like downhill or something, or just forward, then the bike metaphor works. I don't know.
Anyway, any other questions about that? Did we cover that?
About
anything spiritual recession? Does that clear it up though? You understand what it means now, more or less?
Yeah. Now I'm just trying to think about how you use it now.
Well, you do it.
Like what application?
Stop waiting to see where you're going to be. Like so if you've got somewhere you want to be at the end of next year, think of it like being in a river. Okay, well you're not going to sit there in the middle of the boat while the river's moving. You'll just stay here. Like you're going to get pushed downstream, right? You can't sit here and wait for things to get better. You've got to paddle. I kind of think of it that way, right? So if you've got goals you want to accomplish by the end of 2021, set those goals and start working on them, realizing that at some point, yeah, maybe the vest is going to come off, right? And it's going to be harder to move forward. But you can't wait for things to be ideal, mm-hmm. right? Because even if you're moving at a snail's pace when things are difficult, you're going to be way ahead of everyone that basically waited for for the ideal situation. And plus you're going to have...
That's always the case.
Yeah.
Rona or no Rona.
Right. I'm going to do, if you guys are watching this, especially for students, I want to do a session on goal setting. Basically walk you through how I set goals usually the first week of January. I kind of map out my year plan and check in on my 3-year plan. So I was going to do a Zoom call probably over the break in between Christmas and New Year, in that void where you just tend to be in your pajamas for the whole week.
The Christmas tree is still up.
The Christmas tree is kind of still up, yeah, so but it doesn't really have that same zeal to it. You look at it and you're like, I got to take that down.
Well, you look at it that way. January 2nd, I guess.
Okay, well anyway, that time when you're in your pajamas for the week in between Christmas and New Year's, I was going to...
still. She had another question.
So standing still is like being on a bike, is like the root cause of falling down.
Yeah. Well, go and try to ride your bike and not move forward.
You're going to have an easier time finding balance
with momentum.
When you're moving forward, right? Even if you're moving really slow, it's easier to maintain balance if you're moving, but you can't really get balance at all if you're just stuck. Unless you're one of those unicycle guys, because they're pretty awesome.
But it's still a constant effort.
Moving forward and back.
I think that's what really we're trying to say here. It's the constant effort. If you just relax, right, you're going to fall off the bike. You're going to fall down the mountain. You're going to drown in the waves, right? You have to maintain something.
I don't want to say the root. I don't want to. Yeah, the root cause of falling down. I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say that it's the cause of falling down. Sometimes the cause of falling down is you get knocked
by a truck
down.
You get hit by a truck right? Suddenly.
Yeah, so you can't.
Oh, I was hit by a truck.
That's gonna happen. You're gonna get pushed down, and
gonna get up
sucks.
again.
And then you got to get up again, and you got to keep going forward. So yeah, I don't want to say that that's the cause of falling down. Anyway, but yeah, so if you guys are watching this and you would like to do that, be a part of that goal setting process I'm going to take you through. We'll do a Zoom workshop on it.
It's fun.
And yeah, I'll basically just take you through how to set goals and how to set bigger goals than you would normally set. Because a lot of times when we set goals in January, there's two mistakes that we do. One, we set only annual goals, right? So people set a 1-year goal instead of setting like a 3 to 5 year goal, okay? And the problem is with the 1-year goal is everyone gets really excited about what they can do in that 1 year, and
is
then
this Bill Gates or Steve Jobs who said this?
I don't know.
I don't know. It was in Stealing Fire.
Oh, but they overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 3. I thought it was a Robbins thing. I thought Tony said that.
No, it was a.
Was Steve Jobs then?
I think it was Steve Jobs.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what they end up doing is they set a 1-year goal, right? Get tired of it in the first quarter, and then bail on it, and then just coast step by step, day by day for the rest of the year until next January, and they punch themselves for not achieving that goal, and then set the goal again, and repeat that process again and again and again. So after 3 years, you've got a 1-year goal that you've repeated 3 times and accomplishing it not at all, right? Not one time. Whereas if you set a 3-year goal, 3-year goal, you can accomplish a lot more over 3 years than you can over 1 year. So the line is we overestimate what you can do in 1 year and underestimate what you can do in 3 years. So that's the first thing that people do. And the other thing they do is they set, instead of goals, they set lists of things they're going to achieve anyway, right? Pushed down and then run over by a truck. Relatable.
Hashtag relatable.
Easier to find balance. Yeah, exactly. So they shoot, what was I saying? They set activities instead of goals. So like basically don't set goals for the person you are and write things out that you think you'll accomplish anyway.
Or that you can already do.
Or that you can already do.
Yeah.
So if your goals don't make you go, then they're not big enough goals. Yeah. Because they're not going to push you to be a higher, better version of yourself to achieve those goals. Yeah. Right? So
if you don't have to change to achieve a goal, there's really no point.
Yeah, if you can achieve it based on who you are right now, then there's no growth. There's no point. That's the whole point of setting goals. It's not getting the thing. Say you want a goal of buying a new car or buying a home, right? Like that's the prize at the end of it, but that's not really why you're setting goals. You're setting goals because you want to, drive yourself to be a better version of yourself. So your goals have to do that, and they have to make you a little bit uncomfortable in order to achieve them. And in so doing, you will be stepping out of your comfort zone to achieve them, and you can't grow without stepping outside of your comfort zone, right?
It's like the black sash thing. Anybody could just go online and order a black sash.
Yes. Yeah, you can go on Amazon.
Rewarding as actually earning the black sash.
Yeah, you can go on Amazon and get a black sash.
Regardless of whether or not you don't get your sash right away because of COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions about that?
What was this?
Spiritual recession.
Teamwork and influence thing you were on about?
Teamwork and influence. So you're going to have, when you have, again, think about it where, okay, if your discipline is good, you're doing what you're asked to do right away without being on time, right?
Yeah, we talked about
self-discipline, self-discipline, and then team leadership is everyone sees you do these things so they want to follow you, right? Okay. Well, now, relatively, if you're following your values now,
everybody's kind of looking for someone to lead right now.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you're in that leadership position, simply by setting a good example through your actions and holding true to your values, that's twice as much as valuable as it normally is, right? So if you're in a position of leadership, and I don't mean, I mean in any way, like if you're ahead of if you're a parent, right? Setting a good example for your kids is going to be worth more now than it was, last year. Yeah. Especially because, the chance is that everyone that kid runs into during the day, you know, at school or during other activities, they're probably going to be they might be in in an upset, crummy state as well, and that's going to be another influence from them. So the more you're a positive influence for them, the greater it's going to be, the greater influence is going to be. And again, like I said, easier to say than to do, but I'm just saying it's valuable. And if you're holding on and you're doing everything you can in that regard, even though it's difficult, and even though you might not be doing as well as you were last year, don't beat yourself up about that, because every bit of effort you put in is still worth more.
It's going to pay off.
Now it's going to pay off, exactly, right? Just like putting $1 away, you know, maybe a couple years ago would have been worth $2 now. It's the same thing.
Yeah. But what you do now could be more valuable. Like, it's valuable now, but you cash it in.
When the weighted vest comes off.
Because you don't get the reward right now.
Yeah, no.
Like, I would argue that.
Yeah, no, you don't.
So it might be worth more.
Keep on.
But
keep on marching through the trenches.
Yeah. But if you don't, then like it's going to be really crappy when things go back to normal.
Yeah.
You're going to not have any strength.
Yeah, you're not going to have the momentum either, right?
Yeah.
So I noticed this, that the thing that I love about setting my goals in between December, like in between December and January, that weekend there, is that when everything opens up again, usually like that second week of January, I've already got my plan in place and I hit the ground running already. And whereas competition is kind of just starting to open up and trying to figure out what they're going to do, right? We've already got a plan in place and we're moving. Mm-hmm. So if and when things go back to some type of normal, you want to have momentum already moving, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah, I realize this might stress some people out, maybe, but whatever. You can't make everyone happy.
Let's talk about what's in the works behind the scenes here, because people don't see the development on the temple and that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, so our new school is our new school. Again, don't want to make excuses, but there's a lot of government stuff behind what we have to do. So we have to get our temple. We've got the design, right? We've got the land. The land looks fantastic. I actually want to go there and take some photos right now, because with all the leaves off the trees, you can see the river. It's right on the river, right? It's an awesome spot. Mm-hmm. We have to do some rezoning for that property. And right now, the local government, for getting that rezoning done, they're moving like they've got a big, heavy weighted vest on. Okay. Right?
Well, that's nice of you to put it that way. That's generous.
So we've got to, it's not moving as fast as it could, but it's still moving forward though. So we're not going to give up and be like, well, let's just wait till it's ideal, right? We're going to keep pushing forward.
We are moving forward on it.
Even though it's not as fast as we would like and as it normally would be, we're not going to stop. We're going to do what we can while we can, when we can, right? So yeah, it's there, and at the same time, we're trying to do some other things too. We're, building our online program more so we can reach out to students that are not immediately in this local area that are training with us online, our virtual program. The books being working on being published as well. So a lot of that stuff going on. That's pretty exciting. And yeah, we might have to pivot next cycle, because there might be more Zoom classes that we have to do if they restrict us down to fewer people, right? Which we already did. So a lot of our black belts and our black sashes are like, yeah, that sucks, but we did that already. We're not gonna stop training, right? We do what we can while we can, when we can. We're not gonna wait for the ideal situation. So even though it won't be ideal, maybe training in, I don't know, if they put us in red and they lock us down to like 9 people in the whole building, it's gonna be a little bit tighter and more Zoom classes, but we'll do what we can. It'll be fun.
What kind of message did you want to put out about like a lockdown or situation, or red zone might be a good kind of thing? Because I know you wanted to say something about it, but you didn't want to make people panic, but it seems like that's going to be the way it is.
I don't know. What exactly did I want to say?
I don't know. I remember you said I was going to do a video about lockdown, getting ready to do the lockdown.
Oh, that was for testing. So yeah, for testing days, I was going to tell students that if you guys are testing next week and we are in red next week, just be prepared to pivot and do your test online, right? And just think about now, just kind of put a pin in that and think, okay, well, Monday I was planning on coming into the school to test, but if I can't, I'll have the video testing as a backup. So just remember that. Don't do nothing and then panic because I don't, just keep that in mind, right? You want to be able to pivot, right? Which is what this year's been all about, be able to pivot. And then we'll do the same thing in January. If we're restricted in January, we'll just pivot. But keep doing what you can, when you can, while you can.
Yeah, it'll be worth it.
It's absolutely.
You're never gonna regret
saying that you trained towards your black sash during the Rona. Yeah. You're gonna have a
everyone who anyone who did quit. It's like I understand, and
everyone will understand.
And you might say, "Oh man, yeah, I wish," but like if you stick this out, you're not going to regret sticking it out. It's pretty much 100%.
And usually what I say, this is an interesting time too, because usually what I say is you can have the story or you can have the result, but you can't have both, right? Yeah. Meaning that when someone gets a black sash, don't ruin it for me. When someone gets a black sash or a black belt, they have the black sash and the black belt. They don't need the story. It's like, holy crap, that was a long-term achievement and you got it. Good for you. The results speak for themselves. Yeah. And if they don't have that, they have the story that I'm sure someone will understand. Like, I wanted to, but I couldn't find the time. I wanted to, but it was tough and I got busy. I wanted to, but the Rona. Like, you'll always have that story if you don't have the result, right? No one ever says, I just wanted to quit. Like, they don't say that. They usually have an excuse
it's a really good excuse.
why they didn't get there, right?
So
and that's fine. And then
10 out of 10.
People will understand that excuse, no problem. Like, and you really only, everyone will understand, I'm sure. You really only got to convince yourself, right? But the cool part about this, though, is that you're going to have the result, plus you're going to have an awesome story. I got my black sash. Wow, that speaks for itself. During the Rona, oh, wow. That's even cooler.
You need that extra
right? Yeah, so that's one way to get the result plus the story for the first time in recent history.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right.
Yay! I'm glad I set my goal to red sash because I know it's going to take longer than the pandemic.
Plus, if you haven't videoed a test before, it's a great way to see where you need to brush up. Yeah, good point. Lacey has a very good point. So if you guys are videoing your test, you don't. Was last cycle the first time you video tested, or you've done it a couple times? But remember we talked about that, and she was like, "Oh wow, I didn't realize the form was like, her forms are good," but she kind of beat herself up a little bit too much, I think. But anyway, but when you see the video, a lot of stuff you need to work on. It's very easy to notice when you film yourself doing it, right? Normally you wouldn't do it. When it's just you and you're doing your form, you're like, "That's awesome, I'm great at this. I got, no problem."
Well, it's easier for the instructor too, so you can rewatch it and show you specifically over and over what you need to do.
Yeah, the instructors can give you much better feedback when you're
on a video.
When you're sending in a video.
A recording.
As long as it's decent quality, right?
Yeah, so that's one pro of video testing. And then in 3 years, you can look back at your kung fu and be like, wow, I sucked. And now I look like...
Yeah, and having video evidence of how much...
Someone's just...
I have...
Sifu's old stomping step.
I have a video of me doing stomping steps when I was in grade something or other. I don't know, I was still in high school, I think. And I was doing stomping steps in my living room. And I don't usually show it, I sometimes pull it out if people say something like, well, that's you can do that because you're Sifu. I'm like, no, you don't get to do that. No, I trust me, I sucked worse than you did. And then I like to pull out this stomping step video to watch how I was flailing along with, the form.
So bouncy.
Yes, it was horrible. Anyway, but just to prove it to you, everyone says like, well, that's you're Sifu. No. Every master was first a beginner, right?
Mm. Cool. Well, let's wrap this up then.
Okay. Consider it wrapped. If you guys have any other questions in addition, we will be checking the comments here. And thanks for joining us. Again, shout out to Michinoku Restaurant. If you want really good teriyaki on Tuesday, well, actually,
they have it
any day except Monday. We just like the alliteration of Teriyaki Tuesday.
Yeah, it was a thing before the podcast.
Yes, before it was cool. So thanks Michinoku for making awesome lunch. And if you guys aren't current students and you want to join us for a 2-week free trial, please click our link. I'll put it in the comment section, and we can get you in to try out some classes, either live or live in person or virtual. Okay, thanks for watching, you guys, and we'll see you next week.